my name is Mimi Graney, and I'm the Downtown Coordinator for the City of Chelsea. And I'm here to give you a recap on all the activities we did in 2019 and a preview of some of the things we're working on for 2020. As you probably know, Chelsea Prospers is the City of Chelsea's downtown initiative to improve neighborhood vitality. And we're working in 3 different areas. One is events, so all kinds of different happenings in the neighborhood. 2 is physical space improvements in the public realm, you can call it that, and then small business assistance. So for the presentation here, I'm going to kind of first go through some of the things that have happened this year and kind of telling which ones might be repeated again this year, and then tell you what's in store for 2020. So the highlight of our events this past summer was for the Chelsea Night Market, which took place in Luther Place. Now, Luther Place is that parking lot behind the old Salvation Army and the Chelsea Walk. It's between 4th and 5th Street on Cherry Street, parallel to Broadway. And over the summer, we did 5 different night markets on Saturday nights from June to October. And the event featured food vendors, craft vendors, different performances, and interactive arts events. We did this project in collaboration with Jukebox Events, and it was quite the hit. We had a number of different food businesses based in Chelsea, but also from the greater sort of Chelsea area. Got a variety of different people there. The event was from 7 to 10. We found that folks really liked the earlier hours, so we're planning on repeating the event for 2020, but to end a little earlier. So we would have different bands on the main stage and different food vendors. We tried to focus on sort of street food, things that you could eat with your hands. The number of different Chelsea businesses participated. So we've got a great shot of Rick Gordon from Allen's Cut Rate was there. A lot of the vendors that did the best were ones that had kind of vintage products and sort of resale of like hip clothing. Folks really liked the vinyl records. We had some folks with handmade soy candles, handmade soap, handmade jewelry. Folks really enjoyed that. But probably the biggest highlight was the performances. So we had a bunch of circus performers. We had ones that encouraged people to take part. So for example, the Boston Circus Guild brought fire twirlers and circus folks on stilts. We even had ones with bike trick BMX bike racers. And we tried to make it as interactive as possible. So we even had kids bring their own skateboards and bikes and did their own tricks on the ramps that we set up. We had the Chinese dragon dancers took part and invited the kids to come and dance with the dragon themselves. So we're planning on repeating the event again this year. And because, again, performances were such a big hit, we're planning on really beefing those up even more. If you're interested in taking part in this or any of the other events, please get in touch with me at the City of Chelsea. Another event that we did, this was earlier in the spring, was we did a pupusa fiesta, celebrating that delicious Salvadoran version of grilled cheese. We held it at Emiliana Fiesta in the spring, and it was such a big hit. We literally were beyond capacity of the building, and the line stretched all the way down 4th Street. We're going to be doing that again this year, but with a different twist. We'll be celebrating the Baleada on March 21st. So at this event, we had free pupusas. We had wonderful dancers and singers. We had little booths where you could go and make your own cerdito and understand a little bit about how horchata is made from scratch, and got to sample of all of those. We also had a giant pupusa prize wheel, so it was a giant pupusa that you could spin and get different prizes. It was really a great hit, and it was a combination of folks who were longtime lovers of pupusas and knew how to make them well as folks who had never had one before and got a chance to try it. So we had maybe about 3/4 of the people who participated. There was over 500 people that showed up. About 3/4 of the folks were from Chelsea, but then we also got people who had never been to Chelsea before who were just kind of curious about trying a pupusa for the first time. So we're hoping that the Baleada Fiesta similarly will attract that same kind of attention. Another event that we had done, this is now, it was a second year, is Fiesta Verano, which was in June that we held in Chelsea Square. This year it was in collaboration with the Chelsea Collaborative. And we basically took over all of Chelsea Square and celebrated the rodeo. So there were a bunch of different booths that were there from different community groups. A main stage, again, with lots of different performers celebrating the music and dance of Latin America. In keeping with the rodeo theme, we had a bike rodeo, which we had Mass Bike there to do bike repairs. We gave away free bike helmets, gave away some free bicycles, and had an obstacle course for kids to play around on. And then the highlight was a actual mechanical bull. Kids really loved it. We had a long line all day, but I think it was the Chelsea police who had the greatest time, and it was quite a challenge to get them off towards the end of the day. They really loved showing off their mad skills on it. It was really great that the Chelsea police and the fire department brought some of their apparatus so the kids got a chance to check out their equipment as well. Another project that I worked on this past summer was in Chelsea Square. Folks might remember the park that's immediately in front of the Apollinaire, the smaller of the two grassy areas in the downtown. That used to be ringed with some small shrubs. There was a single tree that had a fence around it. I often called it like the poor tree in jail. The grass wasn't very well maintained. So early in the spring, we did restoration of the lawn. We took out the old shrubs, replaced all the grass, repaired the irrigation system, and really brought that little bit of the park back to life. The first thing that happened there is I worked with the Chelsea Pride Committee, and we did a rainbow set of plants that went around the tree, and then had that in place for when it was Pride Day, and we were able to fly the Pride flag, and even the Apollinaire got into the spirit, and they put up rainbow lights on the front of their building for those couple weeks. And part of the reason why I redid that part of the park and was able to get people on board was because the idea was to make that part of Chelsea Square more usable. So I did a couple events there last summer. Probably the biggest and most popular one was working with the Chelsea Public Library for their Chelsea Reads Outdoors program. And we got in dozens and dozens. It was packed with little kids who came out, and we had ice cream and reading of stories. And we worked with the Mass Audubon, who brought several different animals for the kids to encounter. So we had a skunk and a Canadian goose, and the kids got to see these animals up close and read stories about different animals. For this coming year, we're looking at doing some planning for additional improvements to Chelsea Square and to do some other small-scale pop-up events like that. My intention is to bring surprise and delight. So in the fall, one of the little surprise things is I put in a whole field of pinwheels for people to just kind of think about the square in a different way. The other big project that we worked on was Division Street. So a lot of people don't even know where Division Street is. If you think of Broadway, there's two alleyways on either side of Broadway, Cherry Street on one side and Division Street on the other. And it goes from Bellingham Square all the way to the waterfront. And it, up to now, has been a pretty sad little alleyway. It is accessible by bikes and cars and pedestrians, but it had a lot of potholes on it, was a lot of trash. This was a very kind of unpleasant place to be. The sidewalks are very narrow there, so the pedestrians usually walk on the street at the same time as cars, and because not a lot of traffic goes through, it kind of works as a shared street. So as part of the work that the planning department did this last year, it was restoring that whole street, new sidewalks, new curbs, new paving overall. And then one of the worries was, once the paving is nice and smooth, no potholes to slow the traffic down, how can we make it still safe for pedestrians? And also just how can we, once we have the surfaces looking good, really encourage people to use it better and limit the trash that's there. So I created a Neighborway, working with Neighborway's design. And a Neighborway is for streets exactly like Division Street with low traffic volumes, low speeds, a place where bikes and cars and people who are walking are all sharing the space at the same time. And the idea is to slow down the traffic with public art. So we did a number of different murals. We're tackling it block by block. And we first started with the block from Hawthorne Street to 4th Street. And the idea is to do additional blocks as we go along the way to eventually bring the art all the way to the waterfront and have people realize on how close it is actually to get to the waterfront from Bellingham Square. So we did a combination of different things. One were we commissioned local artists to make large-scale murals. So for example, Alex Cook worked with the students from Excel Academy, Suri Chavez, the Sinai Galicia, Max Pro. Each of them took an individual spot and made their own mural. And then we worked with the community, and together we made a couple big murals on our own, or together, I should say. So for example, did a mural for the back of Tu Casa restaurant, and just bringing some wonderful light and color and attention to the back of that building. And then the community overall, and a big community painting day, as well as the seniors from the senior center made art panels. So we had big pieces of plywood, primed them up, and then folks created these very colorful images that then got put up along the windows of one of the properties that had been closed up that's going to be redeveloped, not quite in the near future, but will eventually. So we didn't want to put a great piece of art that would have to come down. By doing the art panels, when that building has any changes, we can take the panels off and bring them someplace new. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that block of Division Street, I encourage you to. It's been completely transformed with lots of wonderful color, and we're looking forward to extending that again in future summers. We're next going to be tackling the block between 4th and 3rd. Another project we were working on through last year is Gallery 456. It's a fancy way of calling the windows of the old Salvation Army store on Broadway. Folks probably know that that building's been empty for the last couple of years. The city's putting out that building for redevelopment. It's right now before the zoning and the planning board. The idea is that that building will be leveled, and that about 4 levels of housing will be developed up above, with an active retail use on the ground level. Until that happens, instead of just having a blank window and it not having much love, and seeing an opportunity to be able to highlight some of the artists and happenings in Chelsea, I've been doing a storefront gallery. So about every 6 weeks or so, different community members are showing works there. So over the summer, we did an art show showing off the talents of seniors from the Chelsea Senior Center. We worked with Empty Bowls, and they highlighted the bowls created by community members with information about hunger in Chelsea. Arnie Jarmack showed off his wonderful photos of Chelsea back in the 70s and 80s. The next show is going to be highlighting murals, the muralists who did work on Division Street. We're going to be showing off some of those artists' other types of work, and then encouraging some other artists to come out of the woodwork and to take part and join us for next year. So I'm always looking for more folks to participate in Gallery 456. So if you're an artist or have some kind of works that reflect the history of Chelsea, let me know, and I'd love to work with you about developing a show. Chelsea Day was bringing back an old tradition from Chelsea that basically is a way of showing off Chelsea's pride. Cheryl Watson in the law office at City Hall took the lead on that, working with a whole bunch of different community partners. So for this, we actually shut down Broadway between 4th and 5th Street and brought out different community booths, different interactive games. Again, we can't do anything without music, and had a great music stage there. It was held in October this past year. We're planning on repeating it again this year. We don't quite have a date for that. Another event that we did was Dia de Esperanza, and this was the second year we hosted this event, and we're planning on doing it again in 2020. And this is an event based on Latin American traditions around All Souls Day and around kite making. And we invited different community groups around Chelsea to have gather in small groups and have conversations about personal or their group experiences with loss and change. And as people had those conversations, they made individual kites using tissue paper and stickers, and it sort of became like this group activity to kind of facilitate that conversation. And then on All Souls Day, November 2nd, we gathered at Gallery 456 and put all those beautiful individual kites on display. folks in the community came by, stopped by. Whoever was going by Broadway was invited to join us, and we made tissue paper flowers. We decorated bread babies, which are little bread rolls meant to look like a swaddled infant. We drank horchata, had a chance to have conversations, and folks decorated strips of fabric that were like kite tails with their own individual messages that they wanted to send to the heavens. And it was a way of facilitating some community conversations about loss and change. It's become a giant Chelsea tradition now, the holiday tree lighting. We had our third time reviving this tradition. Over the years, it had gotten smaller and smaller, and 3 years ago, we kicked it up a notch, and it's continuing to grow. Hundreds and hundreds of folks came out to greet Santa, who came in a fire apparatus to Chelsea Square. Our tree might still be small, but the community's enthusiasm is great. So we had some kids dressed in costumes, like the Grinch, to greet folks in the community. We had free snacks, lots of great music. Off-Broadway Studio has been a great partner this past year about showing up and entertaining the crowds. So we're really glad that that tradition has returned and that it's been so warmly embraced by the community. So moving on from events, some of the other things that we've been working on the side is around how to improve public space in the downtown overall. One of those projects has been bringing street pole banners and decorative ones through the downtown that will highlight happenings in Chelsea and help build community pride. So one was through the lead of DPW, where they worked with Darlene DeVita, and who took portraits of folks from Chelsea, and we featured those portraits on banners along Broadway. We also did some other ones with a word mark, and the idea is to sort of be able to make t-shirts and tote bags that will feature that word mark to sort of speak to the city of Chelsea and their community overall. For 2020, as part of the Division Street project, we're looking at doing some creative crosswalks. So I've actually submitted a grant. We're crossing our fingers that the funding will come through. The idea is to work together with Green Routes, and for the crosswalks of Division Street, again from Chelsea, from Bellingham Square to the waterfront, doing a series of creative crosswalks that will kind of connect that public art along that stretch and have a test to be able to see like how to creative crosswalks work. Do the cars really stop properly? How well is the paint hold up? That kind of thing. So we're hoping to be able to do that this coming August. The long-awaited signage ordinances were passed last July, and that basically changed the rules about how businesses could put signs on their properties. The previous rules have been very restrictive and didn't allow that for the type of signs that businesses wanted to do. And we really wanted to create a whole kind of suite of different signs that the businesses could do. For example, ones along the band over the businesses' windows, ones that would be blade signs, ones that would stick out vertically so that as you're walking down Broadway, you'd be able to see it sticking out from the side. Window decals, lighting, basically following design best practices. So those ordinances were passed last July, and the City of Chelsea put out a request for proposals, and a contract was awarded to the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, which is sort of an offshoot of the Chamber of Commerce, specifically to do small business assistance. So that group has been working one-on-one with businesses and has awarded a number of grants, the first of which went to Rodeo Restaurant for their new signs, and we can anticipate over the coming months some new signs for other businesses along the downtown. And speaking of that business foundation, there's a group of downtown stakeholders, including the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce Foundation, the city, some of the property owners, and we're working with Mass Development for their program called the Transformative Development Initiative. And it's through that project, last summer, the TDI group did some fundraising to do improvements for Luther Place. And the funding went out to the public, and we raised over $15,000, and that was then matched by the state. So there's over $30,000 to do improvements to Luther Place. The Chamber of Commerce, kind of the subgroup that was working on that, was looking initially at doing some giant sails to be able to deal with how hot it is back there. They're also looking at some ideas around murals, maybe doing a painting on the pavement itself. So you can anticipate some of those improvements being in place by this coming summer. A project that I'm working on, now that the new ordinances passed around signage, included in that package were ways that the businesses can use the public realm, basically the sidewalks or the alleyways near their business, to be able to beautify it and just do some outreach. So part of that is being able to do A-frame signs, those little sandwich boards that oftentimes you'll see. So I'm going to be rolling out a program so that businesses can get free A-frame signs and work with a graphic designer to make them customized and really beautiful, working with sort of chalkboard paint. And then that new work in the public realm, or the ways businesses can engage into the public realm, also includes sidewalk dining. So it's a big part of Chelsea. The sidewalks are a little too narrow to allow this, but there are places where businesses could maybe even just put out a couple chairs or a small table, or even just some of the alleyways nearby. So I'm going to be working with a consultant, and we'll be reaching out to the businesses, again with some small grants, for them to be able to sort of pilot this and to look at how they can activate in front of their business and expand so that their folks, while they're having lunch or dinner, can actually sit outside in the warmer months to be able to engage with the community. So that's a little bit about what we've been up to this past year. Thanks so much for watching the show. We'd love to get you more involved, both in terms of finding out, keeping informed about what's happening with the Chelsea Prospers and all our downtown projects, and also to just get you involved. We're going to be needing a lot of folks to participate in these events, either as vendors or as artists or as volunteers or promoters, and basically as a role for anybody to be involved. So please reach out to me at City Hall. My phone number is 617-466-4186, or you can send me an email through the city's website. Or you can also just sign up for my email newsletter. I send it out about once a month. So if you just go to the website tinyurl.com/Chelsea Prospers newsletter, you can sign up right there and stay in touch every month. So thanks so much for watching. Looking forward to telling you about more of the wonderful things happening in the downtown in 2020. Thank you.